Hi, everybody. It's Bill, and I'm here today with my fellow geezer Bob. And we're going to get a book review from Bob about a book called Rock Atlas USA, which is a guide to about 650 music locations from across the country. And it sounds like something that if you're interested in where records were made or album covers were photographed or other things that took place in a state and you want to check it out, this might be a good book to pick up. So let's see what Bob has to say about it. And Bob, take it away.
All right. Thank you there, Bill. Yeah, this is a fascinating little book that I just picked up a couple days ago. This book was first released in 2013. It was updated in 2017, but there's still a lot of relevancy involved in this thing. And what this is, it's the author's collection of interesting places to see and visit in all 50 states in the US. And he's identified 650 different locations, ranging from places where historic recordings were done, the final resting places of artists, maybe their birthplaces, interesting festivals you can go to and such. And so I want to do a little quiz thing here. So Bill, you're out there from the East Coast. Can you name any places in Connecticut that are attributable to the rock history?
Well, I think Gene Pitney came from Connecticut. From I want to say he came from Rockville, Connecticut, but that might be a little bit too cliched.
Let me ask you a couple questions about your home state. Ever heard of Toad's Place?
Toad's Place is, yes, a legendary New Haven place where I actually saw, believe it or not, Radiohead. I saw Radiohead in 1995, and the Stones, U2, lots of bands that are well beyond that kind of level of a club have played there. So yes, it's a famous club.
Anyway, and on the section here about Connecticut, the author lists Toad's Place and its historical references. There's including the thing that when Wishbone Ash left England, ostensibly to avoid tax stuff, they settled in Connecticut for several years. And one of their albums was titled New England, from being in Connecticut. And apparently they were there for about 3 years. Guitarist Andy Powell made Connecticut more or less his permanent home. And he's lived there since the 1970s. And I did not know this, but REO Speedwagon, their debut album, 157 Riverside Avenue, names checks Westport, Connecticut. So there's a connection there. Reading, Connecticut is the final resting place of Mary Travers from the old Peter, Paul, and Mary folk trio. Scotty, you're a native Missourian. So let's kind of talk about what might be relevant from Missouri. Okay, and they have a mention in here out of Kansas City, where I live now. And back in 1964, when the Beatles were doing their first US tour, they were not scheduled to be in Kansas City. But Charlie Finley, who at that time owned the Kansas City Athletics, wanted the Beatles to play at the old Municipal Stadium in Kansas City. So he reached out and he made the Beatles an offer that they couldn't refuse, $150,000 to come and play in Kansas City. And the Beatles actually had a day off. So they canceled their day off, came to Kansas City and performed in the old Municipal Stadium. Now, this was the only concert appearance on that tour that was not a sold out show. And the book claims that the reason is that Charlie Finley, who went on to move his team to Oakland, where they became the Oakland A's, was not very popular with Kansas City media, so they really didn't promote the show. So of the 30 some odd thousand seats available, they only sold about 20,000. So it was the only show that wasn't sold out. And at the time, the Beatles were doing about a 30-minute show. Well, Finley wanted them to do a longer show, so he offered more money. And this is when John Lennon made the famous quote, supposedly, of "the Beatles are not for sale." So now the old Municipal Stadium is gone, but there is a plaque in Kansas City that identifies where it was. Scott, so what else do you think from Missouri might have been mentioned in this book?
hold that book up in front of the camera.
Okay.
That's a famous photo, we all know, taken by a photographer named Henry Diltz, who we know he did the cover for Morrison Hotel The Doors and several others. Henry Diltz is from your hometown, Bob. He's from Kansas City.
Oh, okay. I did
Kansas City native. Yep. So I'm sure there's a lot of Henry Diltz locations listed in that book because he took very many iconic photos.
There are. On the other side of Missouri, the big tribute is to Chuck Berry.
I was about to say probably Chuck Berry's farm.
The author mentions the statue of Chuck Berry down on Delmar Boulevard, how you can go down and pose next to get your picture taken. Then he also talks about Blueberry Hill. Now this is where in his later days, Chuck Berry performed at Blueberry Hill. This is one place where the books is a little out of date because it mentioned, hey, you could maybe get lucky and catch a Chuck Berry performance there. Of course, Chuck has left this mortal coil. And so that is a little bit dated thing. One of the other Missouri references, the little town of Tipton between Kansas City and Missouri is the final resting place for a person named Harold Eugene Clark. And his claim to fame is, anybody?
Gene Clark? Or Gene Clark?
Yeah. One of the founding members of the seminal folk rock group, the Byrds. So his final resting place is here in Missouri. So, Scott, we'll give you another shot at this, and we can jump forward to the section here on your adopted state of Florida. And so in Florida, down in Gainesville and Bronson, we've got Bo Diddley's gravestone and plaza.
Let me stop you right there when you say down in Gainesville. For me, that's up in Gainesville. I'm several hundred miles south of Gainesville. So.
Okay, in Gainesville, wherever that may be in Florida. Okay. So Greenville is Ray Charles' statue and childhood home. Jacksonville, Florida has the Leonard Skinner Memorials. Miami, 461 Ocean Boulevard,
Correct.
that actual house, and that the title of an early Eric Clapton solo album. And he actually stayed at that house, and that house is on the cover of the very famous album. And I also learned that
that's on South Beach, where LeBron James brought his talents.
And Bee Gees and the Eagles also rented that property, when they were doing recordings there. Let's see what else maybe.
Do they have the birthplace in there? I'm in Broward County. I guess the most famous musician that came out of Broward County.
Tom Petty?
No, he's from up north.
And it's one blob to me.
And Jim Morrison is from up north, up north in Jacksonville. I'm thinking the most famous musician that came out of Broward County, who was a native, was and tell me if they have in that book the birthplace of Marilyn Manson.
No, that's not in there. That is not in there. Also, I noticed curious.
Jackoff Jill came out of here too.
Omitted from the Florida is Jim Morrison and the Dinner Key Auditorium, site of the famous.
That's right. That's down in Miami. Yep.
And that's curiously not in here, but they do talk about Criteria Studios, which was a very famous recording place where 461 Ocean Boulevard was recorded there. The Eagles Hotel California was recorded there. Bob Dylan's Time Out of Mind was recorded there. A big chunk of REM's Automatic for the People was recorded there. And then there's a location in Tampa involving The Who, which has the record for being the shortest concert in rock and roll history. It lasted all of 13 seconds.
And what happened?
The Who took the stage on March 13th, 2007, and Roger Daltrey quickly realized that due to a worsening case of bronchitis, he was not going to be able to perform. So they literally shut down 13 seconds after they started the show and apologized and rescheduled it and came back and did it later. So anyway, a couple more things I want to highlight in this book. There are huge sections in here involving California and New York, of course, because those are so tied in with music. And California has page after page after page of locations, that are tied to famous artists. Same with New York City. And like New York has directions to the alley that was used for the cover photo for the Doors' second album, Strange Days. So you could go there and actually look at that alley. And the author says that it's little changed from the days when they used it as a Doors cover shoot. So this is to me was a fascinating thing to see, all of the different places you could go tour. So if you're ever going across country, I'd recommend having this book with you. And if you're tired of being on the interstates, get off, take some of those blue highways and go find some of these more obscure things. Mississippi has got a lot of entries because of all of the famous blues musicians from there. And while it says Rock Atlas, it's not just rock music. There are listings here for blues, jazz, country. You can get directions to Butcher Holler, the birthplace for Loretta Lynn. It actually is a real place, And so anyway, I thought it was a fascinating little book. Even if you never go visit any of these places, it was really kind of fun to go through here and read about where some of these people are from, and some of the famous things that occurred there. And it lists like the locations for a lot of album covers and how those covers came to place. And you mentioned Henry Diltz. He gets a lot of references in here. And in fact, there was one that I thought was kind of interesting. It was a cover of a Byrds album, and it's got them on stairs, and in the background it looks like it's Monument Valley. And that was actually shot at the Griffith Observatory in LA, and then they put the Monument Valley, Utah background behind it. So that was kind of interesting. Anyway, it's a neat little book. I would recommend getting a hold of it. And like I say, if you ever want to go do some cross-country road trips, this could be a little handy companion to have with you. Rock Atlas, USA, 650 memorable places to visit. So thanks, guys.
Thanks, Bob. Well, that sounds like a compelling read. Definitely one you want to throw in the glove compartment if you have a big enough glove compartment. Otherwise, probably backseat. Anyway, thanks to everybody for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. We got more stuff coming.